Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Gaming the System, the podcast where three intersectional feminists examine gaming through a feminist lens. Today it is Matt and Jem, and we're continuing our series of commentary on the Last of Us TV series. Today it's episodes 5 and 6. So if you haven't watched them yet, and probably if you haven't played the game either, probably best to go and do those first and then come back and see this. Before we start, if you want to support us in creating our content, we now have a Patreon, and which you can find at patreon.com/gamingthesystem, and you can see our monthly special Patreon-only episodes. Right, with that out of the way, episode 5 was just awful. Felt awful at the end.
Yeah.
Just going, you know what's going to happen. And they made it so much worse, so much more awful in every way, all the way through.
Yeah.
But we'll start at the start. What did you think of the portrayal of Henry and Sam? And also, is it Kathleen?
Yeah.
Who she plays? Yeah. What did you think of those characters?
Well, we talked a bit about Kathleen last time because that was when we first met her, wasn't it, in episode 4? And I really I know that there was a bit of flack about the fact that she was a sort of older woman than the original game character who was sort of younger and more muscular and all of these things. But I really liked her. I thought she had that edge of somebody who's literally just gone through utter crap and just tipped over into like, I don't care anymore. Everything is too shit for me to care, because she is pretty evil, really, as it goes. And she's just mean. There was a couple of scenes when I thought she was going to do something really horrendous, and then actually she didn't. So maybe I was ascribing more meanness to her than she deserved. But I thought that she was really well acted. I thought she was really well cast, and I just really liked the way the character was developed. I would have actually liked to have seen more of her, to be fair. I think I would have liked to have maybe delved into her background a little bit more. But instead we got to sort of explore Joel and Ellie meeting up with another sort of older, I think they were brothers, actually, Sam and Henry, but there was almost this sort of father-child thing going on because there's a big age gap between them. In the game, I think it's not quite as big as it was in the TV show. They changed Sam, made Sam a little younger in the TV show. And also, the key thing actually was that Sam is deaf in the TV show, and the actor who plays Sam is deaf as well. So that was really interesting because he's not deaf in the game, and that added another layer to things. And I really liked them because I think they gave us an opportunity to see how another similar pair is how they were getting through in this world. And also I really liked Henry's kind of honesty about the fact that he wasn't the kind of person who could fight his way through a horde of clickers or whatever, and I liked that. I thought that was really nicely done as well, which kind of gave us a juxtaposition between Joel's hardness, which we also talked about last time as well, didn't we, really?
No, I think it's still they've not made it violent as it needs to be to have the impact. So we haven't seen Kathleen actually shoot someone. She shot the doctor at the end of the last episode, but if you go, anyone can shoot anyone. There's nothing difficult or scary about someone being able to shoot someone. And with Joel, we've only seen him shoot someone, and when he beat the guard to death, it was because he lost control. And I feel like we need to see it more. They talk about the horrible things, like we get. It's like, and like with the guy being strung up at the start, stringing up one of the Fedra guards. That's horrible, and that's the sort of thing you need to see to go, oh yeah, those are the stakes of this world. They're not just going, oh, we're going to get captured. And Kathleen, if we'd seen the horrifying things that Kathleen has done since her brother was killed, then when she's saying basically her brother kept her human and stopped her becoming a monster. And now that he's gone, all she's got left is this monster side of her, which she probably hates and was trying to hide. And so there's that element of it for her. And with Henry and Sam, I really, really liked that they made him sort of, it's grey. He betrayed the leader of the resistance, which is literally the biggest crime a collaborator could possibly do. But he did it for his brother. Is leukemia curable?
Is what? Sorry?
Is leukemia curable? I didn't realise it.
But probably not without medication.
Yeah, so that just felt like a yeah. I don't know anything about leukemia, so that felt
no. I mean, it's a form of cancer, so it absolutely is curable, but it's a tough one. You wouldn't want to get that in a post-apocalyptic scenario, really.
No, absolutely not. And so that's the stakes of what can happen, but again, we don't see any of that.
No.
What else did I write? Yeah, there aren't any monsters.
No, there aren't in the. I mean, there are quite a few at the end of the end of the episode. It's quite, you kind of make up for it, and actually, there's a lot more at the end in the TV show than there was in the game at that same scene. But just going back to the point, I think it was really interesting. Well, firstly, I think that the violence is implied and not seen, and I think that we might just have to agree to disagree on that one, because I don't have too much of a problem with that. I do understand what you're saying, because from the game perspective, the games are extremely hands-on violent, and I don't think that's coming across. I think they've decided to take this in another way, and I think some of it might be about putting to use a term, clear blue water between them and Walking Dead, because in The Walking Dead, you just constantly feel like at any moment something horrendous and violent and horrible is going to happen, and your favorite person is going to die. And I haven't finished the seasons actually of Walking Dead, because I found them so stressful that I have to watch them when I'm in the right zone. And I think, that's I'm not getting that same feel with this, which I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but it's nice not to have this sort of constant, like, oh my god, you can actually engage with the story. But I do also think that it was really interesting when they talked about Henry's betrayal, because Joel he's really like, oh, he hears what he's done, and he loses respect for Henry once he hears about that. There's a real moment where he's like, okay, you're a bad guy. You're not the sort of person I want to be around. despite the fact that clearly he's not friends with these people, that there's just this whole thing about betrayal and loyalty and all of that. But even when he realizes, even when he knows why he did what he did, Joel is still a bit, like, and it takes a little while for him to get his head around it. And I think that was really interesting, because from the perspective of fleshing out who Joel is, that loyalty is so important to him. But also, we know, because he's on this massive great search for Tommy, that family is also really important to him. So you can see how this would be a real conflict for Joel to kind of get his head around, like, what Henry did and why and what that means. And in the end, obviously he decides to support Henry and help Henry and Sam. But I almost think that if he was there on his own without Ellie, I think he might have just left them in the dust. I don't think he would have helped.
Yeah, because I think since Joel had 20 years of just hardening himself and closing off all of his emotions because he didn't have anyone to live for. So he was just adapting himself to what he needed to be to survive. And it was literally just him and Tommy and Tess. That was his world. And he wouldn't, I agree. I don't think he would have been moved by, especially by these two. I think, yeah, that's interesting. And it's only since he's been with Ellie that we'll talk about this more when we're talking about the next episode, Joel's emotional spectrum and his emotional literacy, which is completely different from the game. So he's been sort of opening up, the feeling side of him has been growing out again.
Yeah.
And the more it grows and the more time he spends with Ellie, the more he becomes, his feelings and his emotions are out there and they're raw and he's vulnerable. And so I think every day he spends with Ellie, the bigger that empathy with the world comes back in, especially with a father-child relationship. And I think the more protective he becomes of Ellie, which is why when he said, "I don't work with collaborators," it really felt like he was looking for an excuse not to help, because he was going, all of his alarm bells going, I need to keep it just me. I need to keep it just her. I need to be in control.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's looking for justification for that. I think it's interesting because we did an episode, didn't we, last year on the motherfication and fatherhood and all of that, and the justification. And we did talk about Joel and Ellie in that episode, in the game. And it is really interesting how it's so often children, and more often than not female children or female adults, who help male characters to bring out their emotion and bring out their feelings. And I think that we are seeing that in this series so much. And I think, like, Ellie is bringing this out, it's cute because Ellie is such a roughy tufty girl. She's quite self-sufficient. And I think that was another thing, actually, that I really liked about this episode, was that we got to see Ellie the child. We got to see Ellie exploring, just being 12 or whatever she is in the show. And I think that was really sweet. Like when she was reading the comics with Sam and playing football, and that she wanted to stay in this sort of nice space that they found underground because, you know, it had stuff, at least there's stuff to do here, I think she said, you know, and there was we got to see the child side of her, which I think was really interesting given what happens in the next episode, because I think what we see in the next episode is almost the opposite, is we see her having to take control of her relationship with Joel and taking a stand in that. So I think it was nice that we saw that in this episode. We got to see her being a child, and I think that brought out Joel's fatherly side. And it was just tragic the way the way that the episode goes is tragic, horrific, scary, stressful, panicky, and then just so tragic. It just I mean, the first half of it is one thing, and then the second half of the episode was just, I don't know.
What did you, so the big standoff, I love things when like it feels like, okay, we've got you cornered, there's nothing else that can happen. And then this bit was brilliantly done when it just goes,
yeah.
And then you see from like the previous episode, there was that sinkhole, and you go, oh shit, that's scary. What did you think of the zombie attack?
Well, I was thinking about it today, actually, and I was a bit at the point that they all started coming out. I was like, "What? Why are they doing that?" And then I was like, "Oh yeah," because they'd made all these comments about how they were all in the tunnels, but then they weren't when they went through the tunnels. So I guess that the idea was that they'd just been pushed back and then kind of sealed in somewhere. But I felt like a lot of that had been left to us to work out. So when they all started streaming out, all of these creatures, I was like, well, there's always a practicality for me. I'm like, how do these things even stay alive? You know, what are they actually feeding off and stuff? But I suppose, you know, they're supposed to be all connected, aren't they? Fungal things. But yeah, just sort of, and I think the other thing I felt was it looked a little bit CGI for me. So it was a little bit too smooth when they first came up initially. But then once it got into the actual fight scene and they were all running all over and grabbing, that was just terrifying. That was really scary. And the whole scene with Ellie with Joel being up there snipering all the people, and us sort of seeing it from his view and then seeing it from their view, and Ellie getting stuck in that car and this little child creature jumping in and going all over the place. Oh, just that was so scary. It was yeah.
I agree. I think that another criticism is I think they pretty much copied exactly what the zombies and the clickers look like, but particularly the clickers and the bloater.
Yeah,
they literally copied them from the game. But the problem with that is that you can do so much more tactile stuff with physical effects than you can in a game, because it literally just needs to be a certain way, and then you just copy and paste it. You could have made the bloater so horrifying and revolting and putrid, but they just copied it. And I agree about the CGI syndrome of just go back to Lord of the Rings and copy, use it, make them all, rather than it looks too much CGI. And the bloater was actually a real person in a suit.
Yeah,
and that completely, it just looked 100% CGI to me. So, and when we see the clickers in the first time we see them, they're just too, the heads are too big. I think they needed a redesign of those. Yeah. But so that was disappointing. It was a great idea. And now the ending. So the end scene, we know that from the game that Henry shoots Sam. In the game, it's just Sam keeps it to himself and just stays there hoping. And the conversation with that was awful because he's like, what happens to you when we die? And then he's like, I think that's just it, mate. We just get eaten by worms. Good night. And then he's just sat there left on his own with that. That's horrific. But in this, he shows Ellie the bite. So straight away, Ellie knows. And she goes, oh, maybe this would be okay, cuts herself, puts it on. And so there's the hope of that. But we know it's not going to work. She goes, oh. And then the awful worst bit number 2, she says, oh, don't worry, I promise I'll stay awake with you. And then she falls asleep. And so he turns alone, terrified, and he didn't wake her up. So it means, oh, I know I was left alone at the end. And then Ellie gets up and he attacks her, and they barge through into the other room with Joel and Henry. And Henry shoots the floor by Joel to stop him moving. So Joel's like, I think this is the first time that he's seen Ellie just about to be hurt in a way.
Yeah.
That's the first time he's seen that. And it's just panic. And then Henry shoots his brother in the head, which is what happens in the game. And then Henry shoots himself.
Yeah, that was horrendous.
So just on the face of it, that is awful. It was awful in the game. And Joel tries to...
Oh, it's actually making me tear up now. Gosh.
Yeah.
It was so... Yeah, it is.
And Joel just looks at him and goes, I know exactly how you feel. I know exactly how you feel. Just give me the gun. Just give me the gun. And then shoots himself. And that's it. Henry and Sam, gone. And before I get on to why I think it's even a billion times worse, what did you think of it?
Yeah, I think it was just so tragic, and again, it was really lovely to see Ellie and Sam bonding, and they talk about, Sam asks if she's scared, and she says that she's scared all the time, and you just get a real insight into how horrendous existence is for these 2 young people, and that the adults feel like they're carrying everything as we so often do, but the kids are also being affected by all of this, and they really bonded, and you really feel Ellie's so earnest when she cuts her hand, and she really believes. She said, my blood is magic, my blood is medicine, and it's just that real innocence, I think, that we've brought out in Ellie by Sam. And then for her to wake up the next morning and him to have turned, and her to have, as you said, not been there. And the last thing when they leave is she just puts, I'm sorry, doesn't she? She writes, I'm sorry. So it was obviously so, it just really got me. I mean, I found it, I got emotional when you were just describing it then. And I just think it's so sad, because I think then being there, them bumping into each other, even though it's in a really stressful scenario, they escaped all these zombies, clickers, and they infected, and they managed to get out of that terrible situation. And then this happens, and Henry shooting himself was so shocking, even though I knew it was going to happen, because it's just this sign, like, there's no point. everything has been for Sam, and now he's gone. There's no point. And like you say, Joel is 100% aware of that, and he's just trying to give him time to breathe before he makes this horrendous decision. And Ellie's face, I mean, that Ellie has to see all of that unfold, is just, yet another kind of nail in the innocence of her childhood. And it's horrible on so many levels.
Yeah. I think the reason, this is the problem with guns, it's too easy to kill yourself. With every other kind of suicide, it takes time.
Yeah.
And so the reason he does it, I think, in the game is because it's literally a 20-second period of everything's fine. My brother's turned. I had to shoot him in the head. Bang. That's it.
Yeah.
20-second period. In this, it's the same for Henry in this. But what you just said about him thinking, I betrayed the leader of this group for my brother. The entire community pretty much was just slaughtered by the infected. And now my brother's gone, that I did all of that for. Just all that rushed through his head and just bang. Which is just as awful for him. But what makes it just catastrophically worse, which is brilliant, I have to give tremendous props to the writers, because in the game Sam kept it to himself. That was just meant it turned on his own. But this way, if Ellie had come out of the room and said Sam's been bitten, then Henry would have had a long time to spend the last few hours with his brother, coming to terms with it. And he would have to be that big brother going, I love you, it's okay. It's all right. I'm going to stay here. It's going to be all right. And he would have been able to start that grieving process and start processing it, because Joel knows exactly what he's been through and knows that you can survive that. But so it was Ellie choosing that robbed Henry of that time to grieve, and she betrayed Sam by falling asleep. And so it's easy to go, it's all her fault.
Yeah.
And just,
But she's just a child, and, children make promises that they don't keep, and, do make stupid decisions. And I think that's the thing, it reminded us that Ellie is just a child, and she's in a really adult situation. And as adults, we're watching this very grown-up story, but she is just a child. And I think that was, that's my takeaway. But I agree. I mean, I think it's just horrible.
Yeah. And Joel really felt like a third wheel in the most of it.
Yeah.
And it's him just seeing that nearly happen to Ellie, and he froze, and what he would have done, like at other points, he would have just attacked. He could have just attacked Henry, but he was struck because he's more emotionally open. He wasn't able to harden up and do whatever it would take to stop Henry. He was stupidly like, oh, it's his brother. He's changing all his feelings and emotions, and he froze. And just reminding you how damaged Joel is.
Yeah.
And
We hope you enjoyed that episode of Gaming the System. If you want to support us, you can donate to us through our PayPal by sending it to wearegamingthesystem@gmail.com if you want to send us a one-off donation. If you want to donate to us monthly, you can subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/gamingthesystem. Until next time, bye-bye.